Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to G&G Live Show. It's Gil and Gurpreet. Today we have a great topic discussion, which is your boss, your manager. And we want to dive a little bit deeper into this, more on the impact a manager has on the employee's productivity. Both Gail and I have been in numerous conversations with individuals, me especially the last, even yesterday I was in a conversation about this with somebody. And it just, every day you get to understand that the true power a manager has in really bringing out the best in their employees or the worst in their employees. And it all goes back to productivity. Now, if you're looking for productivity in your employees, then you as a manager play a very crucial role in getting that from them. So we want to talk about this, and Gail was laughing earlier today that this is probably going to be a series, and this is part one. And I agree with them because we can forever talk about this topic, which is the most important topic. And I think it's the heart of every organization, especially when it comes to employees, because your manager really can break or make you. So let's dive right deep in. This has been a long time since Gail. It's just been me and you. I feel like it's been forever. So going as it's just me and Gail, as usual, I'm gonna let him start off this topic. So Gail, you kick it off. Managers' impact on employees'
Managers' impact on employee productivity and just employees in general. So for me, this hit me the first job in my career. The first job in my career, I took a gap year between high school and university. I was 18 years old and went to work in the materials distribution department of this company. When I was growing up, the cliche in movies was always that you start in the mailroom. That was the bottom of the company. We were below the mailroom. We were made fun of by the mailroom. That's what it was like. For the first 2 months of working there, we had a manager who was never around. He was always at the main office. We were at a side office. And we had a supervisor who was around who was just the nicest guy. The atmosphere around the office, it was so much fun working there. We got the job done easily. It was a very easy task to do. It was really mindless to the point where it probably wouldn't even exist anymore. It would be an automation in a computer somewhere. Pretty much the entire office would be automated in a computer somewhere. But it was fun to do, and we got it done easily to the point where most work was done by 4:30, 4:45 every day. And we were able to go home. My job started over the summer. So at the end of the summer, the person who was my supervisor decided to go to business school. Mm-hmm. And we then had the manager take over full time. So this manager who felt like it was a demotion because he was no longer in the big main office, but now in this side office. And he was with us, I'd say probably 6 of the 8 hours a day as a result of it. And it turned on a dime. The experience that we had went from being amazing to terrible. Having somebody watch over our back, telling us exactly how to do everything, no respect for anybody on the team. And because we were less productive, the work wasn't done by 5. And even if the work was done by 5, we couldn't leave until then. Oh, and so for me, that hit me because I had 2 months with this amazing supervisor who made it a great experience, and we loved being there, and we were all productive and sent all of the materials very easily. And then I had 2 months of a manager who wanted to control everybody, made everybody miserable, and we were significantly less productive.
How many people quit?
The thing was, 2 or 3 people left around the time, like in more left shortly thereafter. And so for me, I mean, I was 18 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. This was my first real work experience, right? So I had no idea what was going on. But it hit me. It's like, wow, just this one person's difference changed the entire atmosphere. As soon as that manager would walk in, everybody would have a different mood. We would slow down, quite frankly. And it was something that I observed kind of empirically, and it was an anecdotal thing, but then I learned more and more over time as I went through my career the importance of the manager. And I mean, we talk about it on the employee's productivity because that's what the organization cares about, but the manager impacts so much
Yeah.
about a person's life. So Gallup did a study a few years back talking about how 70% of the variance in a person's engagement comes directly from their manager. 70% of the engagement. And again, a lot of organizations are looking for it.
I would assume it's higher.
It's well, you got to figure you have to have a lot of room for the task or the role itself, the organization, the brand, peers, the overall culture. There are certainly other factors, but I'm not surprised that it's that high at all. I'm not surprised that it's that
Yeah,
high
either. I would assume it was higher.
because I mean, there's the cliche: people don't leave companies; they leave bosses.
But like we hear this, right? We hear this all the time, and it's so true that people leave their bosses. They're not leaving a company. Now, as much as we talk about culture, company culture, but there's also department culture, right? Individual departments have their own culture, and that culture stems from the manager. And you're right, when you said, it's amazing how one person can make an impact where you guys didn't want to go to work, or like the way you were feeling. I've been saying this for years, from every organization I worked with, even as a consultant when I'm consulting with companies. I tell all my clients and every manager I've ever worked for, it takes one person to create a negative environment. It takes one person to create a toxic work environment. It takes one person to create a snake environment. Just one.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be the manager, but it's so much worse when it is the manager.
But
It
yes,
multiplies the negative effect when it is the manager because then it leads everybody else into acting like that.
yeah. When you were talking about your experience, I have something similar, but on a little bit of a different scale. So when I was in university, I used to work at the airport duty free. I had an amazing boss when I joined the organization. So company had this weird policy that if you're part-time, you can only do like 4 hour shift. I don't know why, but 4 hours. But now picture this, 4 hours. If you drove to work and it's the airport, you had to pay for parking. So I go to my boss, like, listen, like 4 hours, and then I have to come pick up all these shifts to make up 20 hours. That's a lot of my time coming. And then the expense of the parking, gas, and all that stuff. I will listen. How about if you give me, here's my days off from university, if I can get 8 hours, 3 shifts straight. She said, no problem. Gave it to me. So I was running like this for 3 years, let's say. She left. I don't know what happened, or she went on a leave. That's what happened. She went on a medical leave. The assistant manager, I still remember her name. Actually, I remember both of their names. Temporary got into that role. What did she do? Was trying to go by the book. No, policy says 4 hours. You're going to go back to 4 hours. I'm like, but I've been used to this. No, 4 hours. She started screwing up my schedule. I was in my last year of university. So I was like, you know what? Eventually, I didn't want to go. I quit. Actually, what I forgot, let me track back. Diane was my manager, the good manager. I would do anything for her. I remember one time she needed employees to work this very odd shift because a new flight got added on to Cuba, and we had to service this flight with duty free. So it was 3 a.m. shift. Okay?
Oof.
Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody. She came to me. I didn't even hesitate. I said, sure. Why? Because she's was doing me so many favors by giving me 8 hour shift, right? Said, no problem. Go, you do a lot for me, I'll do it for you. So then she left. I would do anything for her. Why? Because she was, great boss, did stuff for me. Now she went on a medical leave, comes Rose. No, take away the 4 hours. I mean, go back to 4 hour shift. You have to come multiple times to make up 20 hours if you want. 4 hour shift. Um, I'm like, I'm not doing 3 a.m. shift for you then. Like, forget that. If you want to change everything on me, then yeah, well, I'm not coming to 3 a.m. So, like, the things that go in your mind where you don't want to do things for your manager, you're not motivated. You wouldn't go the extra mile to help your manager if your manager is being a pain too. And eventually, I quit because I'm like, it's too much. And plus, I lived 20, 30 minutes away. So I quit. And that was my first experience with a good boss. Then comes another boss, and you just quit. And it's so true. We do quit our bosses. And I believe that your manager, your boss, can either make your day great and you look forward to going seeing them to work, or you don't want to go to work because of your boss.
And I mean, look, it goes so far beyond that. So we were talking about productivity because, you know, that's what organizations care about, but not just even about work, but at the end of the day, how much do you feel like eating your dinner? Or, you know, you snap at your partner, you have less time or less interest in doing the things that you care about, worse night's sleep. You know, I always talk about the Sunday scaries, the feeling on Sunday, you know, as a result of being in a bad work environment. That these things are so important beyond just the productivity. Now, I also want to talk about the fact that this also speaks to the experience that that second manager was having. Because if the environment had set her up, if the company had set her up for success, she could have succeeded with you.
Yeah.
If they had given her the environment where they allowed that flexibility, that allowed that employee-centric decision making, then she would have been able. But because she was scared, she was the temporary manager, trying to impress, trying to prove that she deserved. And she knows that if, you know, when she's not in the position, if somebody hears that she's breaking rules, it looks bad on her, hurts her opportunity to actually progress. So
I don't know, but maybe.
no, that is the likely reality
Yeah.
because, you know, if a person is hungry and does want to grow within the company, does want to progress, move up the corporate ladder, so to speak, they're going to do it in a way that they've been told to do it or think is the
Yeah.
right way to do it. And if they think the right way to do it, and that's why the organization has to set that person up in the environment that the right way to do it is the way that keeps Gurpreet on the job. The right way to do it is the way that you have a 3 a.m. shift and Gurpreet's like, yeah, no problem. For you, I will do
I
it.
did those crazy shift.
And those are, from my experience, some of the silent impacts of people practices. There's silent impact of people practices that you don't recognize. They may not have recognized for the time that you were there why you might not have had the same productivity for a while,
Oh,
right?
they wouldn't know, yeah.
They wouldn't have noticed, but it was impacting the business. So something that a leader or a manager was doing was impacting the business, and they had no idea because of the way somebody was being treated.
Yeah,
And it was because of how they set the manager up that ultimately she treated you that way. She looked like the bad guy to you because she was the one who was going again by the rules, whereas the other person from corporate's perspective must have looked like the bad guy because she was breaking the rules.
maybe. Who knows? Because she was there for many, many years. Sadly, like, it's easier to schedule a person that can do 8 hours than doing all these mini 4 hours. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, now my memory is becoming more clear. They actually had a rule where they only hired part-times. So there were already people that were full-time. They were with the company for a long time. So when I got hired, I think that's when, or a few years prior to that, they had a rule that they just hire part-time. So 4 hours, which I don't know why they made that decision, but whatever the case was. But to me, like, scheduling wise, isn't it easier to schedule someone who you know the schedule? Like, okay, here's my schedule. Put me 8 hours straight. You have nothing to lose. I'm still doing
There
12
must have been a profitability thing. There must have been something that they figured out that by having people who are part-time in 4-hour shifts, they were able to save money somewhere. It
Who
sounds like a
knows?
classic.
Nice too. I could have done filed a claim against the union. I just didn't care. It was a job I was doing while I was in university. Paid really great money, great money. Got great perks. Like, you know, I
Did
had
you get
all
everything duty free?
we had product training, so we'll get products for free. We used to get products for free. I have all my perfumes from there. Christmas, I remember first time so they used to do a lot for the company employees. Christmas time, someone told me I had exams. I'm like, I can't come to the Christmas party. Another lady, a girl who worked there, she's like, no, this is one party you don't miss because you get a bag of goodies. But unfortunately, she was right, you did. I was like, oh, right, we got bag of goodies. But every year after that, they just started taking things away. That's a whole nother topic. They just started taking things away from employees. You got a gift on your birthday, you get to pick 3 items. It's great. So managers, let's go back to the manager. Okay, we're talking about productivity here. Those managers that want employees to be productive, it all comes down to how you create that environment. Employees can't magically be productive if you're micromanaging them. If you're watching them like a hawk, you are analyzing every move. You want things your way. Speaking of things your way, somebody I know is going through this situation right now where they have a new boss, and this new boss wants things done their way. Don't care how people in this company been doing things or how this team of all these years been doing things. No, she wants it her way. If it's not done her way, it's not correct. It's low level. It's crap, basically. So just imagine the pressure on, I don't know how big this team is, but it's a pretty big team. And they have a nickname for the boss too. But it's sad. At once upon a time, these people were engaged, productive, working long hours. Now, the individual I know doesn't even want to work. No motivation. And this person's in a pretty high position. No motivation. So one thing I want to highlight, it has nothing to do with when we're talking about managers, it doesn't matter which level you are in. It impacts, even if you're in a higher level, someone has a boss. We all have bosses. Unless you own the company, you're the boss. If you don't own the company, you're reporting into somebody. It doesn't matter if you're C-level and you're reporting into the CEO. Your CEO, if you're C-level and reporting into one of the executives, like a CEO, the president of the company, they also drive your productivity. You know, if you're reporting into somebody, that person's driving your productivity and has a huge impact on how productive you're going to be. And it's amazing how many of us never look at it. Like, if my employees are not performing, the manager should look and reflect on themselves first. What are they doing that it's impacting their employees not to perform? What do you think?
I mean, look, it's you've hit it dead on, because the problem is though, for a lot of managers, it's very difficult to do that because they think that their job is to manage the performance of their team, and that managing the performance of their team means focusing entirely on the team without understanding that their own behavior, their own activities is what drives performance of the team, which is also why the CEO is so valuable, not just as the leader of the company and giving overall direction, but as manager and leader of the leadership team, because they're the one who then sets the tone for how leaders treat the rest of the organization. If the CEO expects other people to do things within the organization and then doesn't live up to it, they have wrong expectations. They're going to miss the mark. And so I'm also trying to think, because there's a lot of ways. I mean, there's numerous ways, which is why this will probably end up being a series. But there's so many different ways that managers end up impacting a person's experience at work. I saw a really interesting post on LinkedIn a few days ago talking about hoarders and talking about how there's some people who are talent hoarders, where when they find somebody who's good, they keep them on their team at all cost. My brother had that experience. My brother was working in a big company. He was identified, and I only know this because we happened to work with the talent management department, but he was identified as a high potential, was supposed to move up, and but because he was a high performer for a specific team, his boss, his manager, did whatever he could, sabotaged him from ever being able to move off of the team because
Oh,
he liked him on the team. And that is such a huge detriment because that causes people to leave. I mean, one of the things that people are always looking for is the opportunity for growth, the opportunity to develop. It's not the clear corporate ladder it once was by going straight up. I like the analogy of the corporate rock climbing wall. But the reality is my brother was limited in this opportunity from being able to go elsewhere, to grow his skills, to cross train, because this his manager decided, I want him on my team, I'm going to keep him here.
what did your brother do? Did he eventually
Left.
left? Yeah.
Oh, not so eventually. Once he realized what was happening, yeah, but he left. And I mean, that is one of the areas where, you know, it shows up on the bottom line in terms of the retention numbers or everything like that. But the organization might not necessarily have the insights into understanding, why did this person leave? Why did a person who we identified as high potential leave the organization? Because that is such an impact on, you know, he could have still been there hypothetically. I mean, this was a company that people were there 20, 25, 30 years regularly. And it was something, though, that this manager was selfish, hoarded the talent for himself, and didn't allow then for my brother's growth.
It's so sad because so many people do this. There's an opposite story to this is where managers feel threatened
Mm.
and don't want to give you more tasks. So I didn't go through this. Some in a company I was working, in my first HR job. So I had a great boss. I became a right hand to him, allowed me to, take on whatever I want to be involved with. Never had this, I'm the manager, so I do this. You're the assistant, you stay here, right? Didn't do that division, allow me to get involved as much as I was willing to get involved. So it kind of left it on me. I remember going on this training for the entire HR department in Canada because we got bought out by a US company. And that's when, so the assistants were allowed to go with the managers because it was a HR system that a new system that they were rolling out. So the managers like, well, we want the assistants there for the training because they're the ones that can be using it the most. Long story short, we all went. I met the other managers in the other facility locations and their assistants. My manager kept coming to me for various things. So they're like, why does he come to you? I'm like, well, because I'm in charge of this. I'm in charge of this. They're like, what? You're in charge of this? I'm like, yeah. You're in charge of this? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what? Our manager doesn't give us anything. Like, we're on the assistant and we're blocked and we can't do more. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, did you guys talk to her? So mine was a male boss. The other bosses were females. I think that could be it. I don't know, but there was a division. They had this.
There's a lot of reasons, I think, that these things happen, that people don't allow. It could be a trust issue. It could be a capability issue. It could
Issue at all. I think it was more territorial.
and that's certainly possible, but it limited them. It really
It
really limited them.
It really did. That's when I realized how blessed I was to have my boss and how much faster I grew my career because of that opportunity. But I felt really bad. So one of them eventually moved out of the department and went somewhere else. I kept in touch till this day, and like I realized, okay, she told me she left because it got to the point where she's like, I'm ready for this and you can't give it to me, then I'm gonna have to find something somewhere that someone will. So she actually stayed with the company, just moved departments. The other one in BC, she eventually quit. She found another job and left, right?
Yeah.
So now their progress, you were holding them back, but how much valuable asset they could have been to you as a team, right? Like imagine, like my boss when he wasn't there, he didn't have to worry. He knew I got it. I became his right hand. We became a team. We became a partnership. But so many people don't get that opportunity because that boss feels threatened. They want that division. They're scared you're going to take their job, or they're scared you're going to move up fast. There's so many things that can happen, but it's so sad when you can develop your employees to go up. Why not? Like, go up, right? I think a true leader is one that can really bring out the best in their team, bring out the best in each individual on their team, bring out their strengths and amplify those strengths. I mean, even help them with their weakness and develop the rare talent. Like, we talk about top talent, such a buzzword, but I think each manager truly has the potential to really build that top talent in their team if they want to.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to definitely have to get back to this topic another time. There's a couple of questions here that I think we should attend to. So how to handle a toxic and bully manager? That is a very, very tough question, because it really depends on how they're toxic and how they're a bully. I would say, I mean, in the ideal situation is find somewhere else. That's the ideal situation, but we're in COVID and there is nothing ideal about it. So I can't just necessarily prescribe that. However, you have to protect yourself. That's the thing, is when a person is a toxic manager, and this is not a productive behavior for an organization. It's not what's best for productivity. That's a great actually example of what we're talking today, because when you have a toxic manager, you end up having a team who try to figure out, how do I survive under these rules, or how do I behave like this toxic manager?
Yeah.
So first thing is, I'd say, stay true to your values, and if they're toxic and they're a bully, don't feel the need to behave like them, and make sure that you're protected emotionally, that you don't take personally what they say. Just because a person that's part of the problem, is when a person is a manager, they have a power over you, they have a control over you, and over your life,
Yeah.
that other people don't have. And you need to make sure to protect that in whatever way you can. That would be my suggestion. It's unfortunate. It's not the answer I want to give, but it is how it is.
I would just add on, one, maybe make them aware. Maybe they're not even aware they're doing it. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes individuals are not aware of their behavior and how it's impacting the person. Maybe have that conversation. If you're not comfortable having that conversation, then I'm going to say make an exit plan.
An exit plan would be great.
Yeah.
But the problem is, some people, when they're not aware, are either willing to take the feedback or not.
Or they're not. I was going to say there is a little bit of a risk in that.
There is.
So if you're not comfortable to have that conversation, your boss the best, and go with your gut. If your gut's saying, yeah, you can have this conversation, have it. If your gut's saying, yeah, I don't know, then make an exit plan. I just gave this advice to someone yesterday. You need to make an exit plan. You need to start by doing your job search. Start your job search. Have an exit plan within a certain time of frame. You want to be out of here, but make sure you leave. Too many people stay in toxic work environments with toxic managers. The only person that's losing out is you. Your mental health is not worth working with toxic managers, and it's not worth taking a beating every single day. It mentally, physically, emotionally impacts you, and so does it your family life. If you're married, it's gonna impact your family life, your personal life. We don't really understand how managers can also impact our personal lives if they are bullies and belittling you all the time. That's not a fun work environment to be in. Unfortunately,
the last point I do want to add on that is that, because I appreciate what you're saying about trust your gut, and if your gut is telling you that you can't talk to your manager about that, that's an important piece of data to consider when starting to make your exit plan. Because if you don't feel that you have the kind of relationship with your manager that you can at least say to them, hey, you're making me feel uncomfortable, then that might be something for you to consider whether or not you should continue to be there. There is a great question here by Jitander, but I think that's something that maybe we should create as a topic for a future episode, because I think it's something about holding managers accountable. That's really about holding managers accountable for creating. Pardon?
Tammy came and we talked about this.
Yes, and but I think it's something to even continue on because I think it's a great question. Thanks again, Gurpreet. We're off for the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
We're back in 3 weeks from now, 3 Thursdays from now. We'll be back. Looking forward to it. We should have a guest at that time.
Yes, we should. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As Gil said, we're taking a little bit of pause, and we'll be back in 3 weeks. If you have topics you want us to cover, feel free to reach out to Gil on LinkedIn or me on LinkedIn and let us know any topics you want us to cover, and we will cover those. We are always looking for topics to cover, and we're always paying attention on what conversations are happening where on LinkedIn. But you are more than welcome to message us on LinkedIn and let us know. So until then, keep safe. Enjoy the weather. If you're in Toronto, then I'm not liking this gloomy weather. Keep safe. If you have a great boss, count your blessings. Be grateful. If you don't have a great boss, because we're not going to be live for another 3 weeks, I want to add on. If you don't have a great boss, if you can afford to quit, you have money saved up enough you can afford to quit. Life's too short. Life's too short to be working with toxic people that don't appreciate you. If you can financially afford it, I would say quit. Probably the best thing you will ever do for yourself. On that note, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back in 3 weeks. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.